Today we are going to be playing soccer football. It's a game made in 1983 for the Vectrex. In America, this game was called Heads Up Action Soccer. This is what the box looks like. In the box you get the cartridge, the game manual, and the screen overlay. It's green to make it look like a nice green soccer pitch. Let's play.
We're playing the beautiful game. Welcome to the green and black page of Heads Up. Notice the name on screen differs from on the box. It's Heads Up on screen rather than the rather bland Soccer Football on the box. That's because in the US this is called Heads Up Action Soccer. You can select one or two players. Two players requires an additional controller, as well as the game difficulty, one of 3 levels. Just here the crowds go wild as the teams run on the pitch. An immediate obstacle you run into when creating a soccer game for the Vectrex is how to differentiate between the two teams on a black and white system, one that cannot create full shapes on top of that. The solution they came up with was to draw one team much brighter than the others. It works. You have a team of shimmering angels against a team of mere mortals. The not-so-glowy team also have an X across their body, which might as well have been left out for all the good it does. It's almost unnoticeable. If anything, the darker team is too dark, but it does look better on screen than is apparent on the video. I like the animation of the characters. I especially like that they have kind of 3D rotation depending on the direction that they are running. They are decidedly flat though. It looks like a team made up of a deck of cards with limbs added. This is the soccer team of the Queen of Hearts in Alice in Wonderland. As for the controls, you use 2 buttons, which change depending on 2 modes of play, either offense or defense. In offense, when you have the ball, button 3 shoots the ball forward. Button 4 passes to the closest player on your team. In defense, when your opponent has the ball, button 3 allows you to control the goalie. You press and hold down the button and move the joystick to move the goalie. Button 4 is switch. You press this button to switch between the 3 defensive players in your team. You tackle an opponent by running into the player with the ball. No button required. Personally, I just couldn't get this through my head, so I always press the switch button at the most inopportune time and switch to another player just as I meant to tackle. Teams are 4 aside, 3 fielders and a goalie. Somewhat weirdly, players wrap around on the field. There are always 3 players per team. If you run towards the left of the screen and one of your players disappear off the screen on the right, that teammate reappears on the left of the screen, directly across from where he disappeared. So there's always a player in front of you. It's kind of Portal Soccer, if you think about it. You can use this to your advantage when passing. In fact, the game relies on that. The game consists of 2 halves of 3 minutes each. If the game is a draw after 2 halves, it goes into a sudden death round, where the first to score wins. Let's be honest, this is no FIFA or Pro Evo, but I consider it a good football game for the time. Gameplay is fun, with throw-ins, goal kicks, passing, all remarkably good for the time. It feels like you're playing a football game, rather than a sticky pong on a green background. By this time, we've already come a long way from the first generation consoles in the mid to late 70s, where soccer really was simply pong with a couple of extra paddles for players. The graphics is really good for the era as well, smooth and crisp, as is expected from the Vectrex. Compared to the market leader at the time, the Atari 2600, I think Heads Up is much better than the overhead blobs of Championship Soccer, also known as Pele's Soccer, from 1980. Admittedly, I had a considerable amount of fun playing Championship Soccer against a mate of mine in the early 1980s, so I shouldn't knock that either. Presentation-wise, Real Sports Soccer from 1983 on the Atari 2600 is closer to Heads Up, but apart from the additional colors, the detail and graphics on the Vectrex takes the trophy. For anyone paying any attention to what's actually going on screen, would probably have noticed that I'm being massacred by the opposing team. That's in equal measure because I can't talk and play, and, well, I generally suck at football games. The game really isn't as good an opponent as you'd think based on my performance. In order to save what's left of my bruised ego, I think I'll throw in the towel and call it a day. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you had fun. Please subscribe and check out our other videos on our YouTube channel.